So as I was saying, this afternoon the topic is the key principles of information management. We have 3 hours ahead, and don't worry, we will have a break more or less in the middle of the session. And so the program is, I'll start by giving you a bit of some definitions, just to make it clear what we are talking about when talking about information management, make sure that we are all on the same page. Then we will go into the information management cycle, really step by step, see what are the main steps of information management, and I hope this will give you an overview of really what it's all about. And then we'll have a discussion about data quality. As I said this morning, I'm going to present you some slides, but I really hope that you are going to be active in the session. I don't want to be the only one talking all the time. So don't hesitate to ask questions in the chat, to raise your hand if you have some comments or some question. And we will have dedicated time to work in smaller groups to reflect on some specific questions. So let's start. So 3 definitions of 3 different words that sometimes we use one for another, but and I'm the first one to do sometimes confusion between data and information, but still I want to give you a clear definition, and then once you know the definition, then you can forget about it, but it's good to have it in mind. So a data is the most unitary level. It's really only a set of facts. It's a raw element that is not linked to anything else. It's just one raw data with no context, no other things to interpret it. So it can be of different nature. It can be qualitative. So it can be just a sentence that you pick from something, from an interview, from a reading. It can be quantitative, it can be a number, it can be a category, something like that. And it can be structured or unstructured. So structured, usually it means that it's in a table, it's in a database, or unstructured, it's just in a set of information, of data that you are going to pick, but not necessarily very well organized. And it can come from different sources. So it's you can have, well, obviously data that you are going to collect yourself, but you can also pick data from other sources. So really data, it's the more unitary level. Then you have information, and information is data that where you have given context and some first level of analysis. So you start to have a structure and a meaning with information. And then above all of this, you have knowledge, which is a combination of information and data with expert opinions, skills, and learning. So it's really where you start to put some sense and to extract and meaning of all of this. You not necessarily focus on only the figures, but you also add some opinions about it, or some knowledge that you get from somewhere else, and then you are going to be able to use it. So I just want to give you an example of each. So imagine that you have an information which is that, your data, which is that the beneficiary whose number is in your database is DA20265, and the data that you have is that this person is a male person. Okay, so that's really unitary. Your information is male, linked with this beneficiary ID. Then the information that you are going to get is, if you look at the whole database and you calculate a percentage, you will see that maybe 68% of the beneficiaries from your project are men. So this is an information you have analyzed, you have grouped, aggregated all your data to build one indicator, which is information. And then the knowledge, and it's just an example, but the knowledge would be that maybe the social cultural context of the intervention area implies that women participation in project activities is lower than that of men. So that's why in your project you have a vast majority of men, and therefore I being the project manager, need to conduct a barrier analysis and adapt the activities to make them more gender sensitive. So this is like, it's just an example, but from the way you can do, starting from raw data, then converting it into information, and then adding some understanding of the context to create some knowledge and then some action for your project. So I hope it's all clear for you. And then something I want to tell you, because it's really going to be the framework of what we are going to do within the next 2 weeks. It's we are going to talk about operational data. So these are data that are collected by NGOs or other organizations in the course of their interventions. And these are data on projects, activities, beneficiaries, or context. So these are only data that are related to the operations. We are not going to talk today about financial data, about logistics data, or about human resources data. So these are very important kind of data, but this is not what we are going to discuss today. And during this whole seminar, the focus will really be on data links with operations, with the projects, with activities. Okay. So why do we collect operational data? The first reason why we collect these operational data, usually it's because we need them in the context of the projects. So in one project, we always have data collection, and this can be for very different needs. Sometimes it's just to identify and calibrate the needs. So at the beginning of the project, when you are designing the project, you want to make an assessment of the situation, and you are going to collect data to identify where are the needs. Then sometimes you want to select the beneficiaries of your project. So you are going to collect data on different groups of people, and then maybe based on different criteria, including vulnerability, including, well, it depends on what your project is about. You are going to select the beneficiaries. Then once you have your beneficiaries, you want to give them some adapted services. So you are going to collect data on your beneficiaries, and you are going to monitor what you are doing actually with the activities that you are implementing with these beneficiaries. So you are going to also monitor the activities, calculate some indicators for your project, for instance, and depending on how these indicators go, maybe you are going to adapt a bit the project because you see that on one indicator you are not on track, and then you need to adapt some activities. These indicators then are going to feed the reporting of the project, and reporting that usually we have to do to the donors. We can also collect data, for instance, in when we are having distributions or cash transfers to show the traceability of the activities. And we can also collect data to measure specific aspects of a project. For instance, if we are going to do a specific research on a given topic, then we are going to collect data for this research. So these are only examples, but just to show you that just for the purposes of one project, there are very different reasons, different opportunities to collect data. But what I want to tell you also is that usually the primary reason for collecting these data is to answer a need within the project. But these data, they are also very useful, not only for the project, but for the whole organization. Because beyond the use inside the project, there are other uses that are simultaneous or sometimes that come a bit later for the whole organization. So for instance, having operational data helps manage the programs, manage geographic and technical division at HQ level, or the organization as a whole. Because at some point we need us HQ or even the country director, the program director needs to have information about what's happening on the field. And this information, of course, it comes from discussion with the team, but sometimes it also comes from indicators to show us where we are. Also, these data that we collect in the scope of project, they are very useful for advocacy, for external communication, just to tell everybody what we are doing, where we are, and so on. It's also useful to monitor the effects of our activities, not only on one project, but more globally, if we want to see if the activities, all the projects we are implementing have results. It can help us to build analysis, not only based on one project, but based on several projects in different contexts, and see maybe if some approach that we are implementing in one context, if it works in another context, then we have to compare the data from the two projects. So we can have geographical analysis, or we can also have analysis on different times, at different times. So see if there is a growth, if there are changes between different years. And more globally, having all these data help us to measure the impact of the organization and to demonstrate that what we are doing is effective. So that's a lot of different things. You don't need to remember all of this, but what I want to tell you is really that these are the two sides of data collection. There is one side which is really operational to answer the needs of the project itself, but then it goes beyond, and you also have to keep in mind that when you collect data in one project, it can also be very useful really beyond this project for the whole organization. So I just want to give you a definition of information management, because this seminar is about information management. So I want to tell you what is the definition that we use in HI. So this definition is from the Association for Information Management. And actually, you will see that there is no really official definition of information management. If you look at different places, there is none that is, it's not one thing that everybody uses and it's the same everywhere. So everybody has its own definition. So we decided to take this one from the Association for Information Management, but if you look maybe in documents from other NGOs, from UN agencies, you will have some different definitions. So this one is: information management covers the various stages of information processing, from production to storage and retrieval to dissemination, towards the better working of an organization. Information can be from internal or external sources and in any format. So in other words, information management really covers the entire cycle of the data. So it's not just about collecting the data and putting it into a database. It starts before. It starts when you start designing your data collection, thinking about what you are going to collect, how you are going to do it. And then of course you have the collection, the part where you put it in a database, and then it continues after that, because after that you have the analysis, you have the dissemination of the data. So really it's a complete view. It's not only the step about the collection, but it's really from the design to until the use and the sharing of the data. And you can even do information management without conducting a data collection. It's completely possible to take that data that already exists somewhere else and to reuse it and to do a new analysis on it and so on. So it's not necessarily information management is not about data collection. Data collection is usually a part of it, but it's really not the only one, and it's even a part that maybe you won't have to do. And the last point is also key. Information management, it says that it aims at a better functioning of the organization. So really, information management is here to support the operations, to support the functioning of the organization, but obviously it's not an end it's not an end in itself. So you are not just going to go on the field and collect data because you think it's cool. You are going to do it to collect and analyze your data because it's going to help you take decisions. It's going to help you manage your project and your organization. And when talking about information management, so I told you that there were different steps. So this is the information management cycle that we use at HI. It has 6 steps. The first one is identify and decide. Second one is plan and initiate. Then you collect the data. Then you process and clean the data. You have some analysis and interpretation. And finally, you disseminate the results. So you share and use the data. And then you archive and pull your data sets. And all around this, you have data protection, and in the middle, you have quality. So I'm going to go into much more details about this cycle step by step, but this comes just after. So I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the cycle. And I also wanted to show you this. So this is another representation just to tell you that this cycle that we have at HI, it's not the only way to put it, to put things. So this is another view. It's this time it's not a cycle. It's more it's called a chain, but it's, if you have a look at it, it's kind of the same. You have basically the same step: identify, collect, process, analyze, release, disseminate. But this one really puts attention to the uptake and impact. So in our cycle, all these last 6 parts, we even 7 parts, we put it in share and use. And here it's much more details. On the other hand, it's less details at the beginning of the process, where you only have identify, where in our you have identify and decide, and then plan and initiate. So it's another view. This one is also interesting too. I'm not going to detail this one, but I just wanted to show you that there are other ways of presenting this. So, do you have any questions so far?
For now, Florian, there is no question in the chat, but don't hesitate to open your mic if you have any questions.
Okay, so apparently it's all clear, or I hope you're not taking a nap. Ibrahim.
Ibrahim, I think.
Okay, apparently it's all clear. Still waiting for Ibrahim to finish what he's typing.
Ibrahim, if you want to open your mic, you can. It's yeah, always even better for us.
Okay, I'm going to move on. So I'm going to put you into different groups. So we will have two groups. You will be 4 into each group, and we will have 3 questions. And I want for each group to reflect on this question and you will have 5 minutes, and then we will come back together. We will debrief, get the feedbacks about this, and then we will go again into the groups. Okay.
There is a question from Ibrahim, just maybe before moving into two groups. How can we blend electronic-based data and paper-based data so hard for better utilization of program data?
I'm not sure to understand the question, sorry.
I don't know if it's regarding only collect or data management. Ibrahim, if you can maybe more specify. Once again, don't hesitate to open your mic.
Florian, I think the question was about how to manage if we have to collect data on paper and digital data. If you have some advice about it, if I understand.
Okay, so in case you have a mixed data collection using both digital and paper. I think, François, tell me, but I think that's something that you're going to talk a bit tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mobile data collection, we'll discuss.
So if that's actually the question, maybe we'll keep it for tomorrow because it's one of the things that we are going to discuss. Okay. So I'm going to launch the groups, and the first question that you are going to have is why is data collection? Why is information management, not only data collection? Why is information management important? So just 5 minutes into small groups to discuss about this. So I'm going to launch the groups, hoping it's going to work. Hello, welcome back. So I think we are again together. So how did it go? Did you have some interesting discussions in the groups?
It was fine for us. We have some points. I don't know if you want to do the restitution now and or redo all the questions.
Now we will take the questions one by one. So I'm going to share again my screen. Okay, and so I'm going to take notes. So please let me know what you discussed and why you think it's important. What are the key elements that you discussed in each group? So maybe we can start with group 1. I think that was the group with Elsa.
Yes, Florian. Yes, it was an interesting discussion. I think it could be also interesting that maybe Ibrahim and Bayru share a lot of information. They share their opinion, and it could be interesting if they want to share that with us in a whole group.
I think you have also taken notes in Framapat, so that can be.
Yes, we took some notes, especially what the participants share, that the information management is important for the context analysis. This is something that we agree on that. We talk also about data protection, especially for the beneficiaries. Also, information management is important to develop a new proposal and also to identify a clear map where we will implement the activities. Important also for the decision making. So if the participants of my group want to share something else, because maybe I forgot some tips that we share, feel free to open your mic and share with us.
Elsa, sorry, I missed one of that you said it was about mapping.
It was about identify a clear map where we implement the activities.
So who else was in the group? And we had Ibrahim, Ayub. Do you want to add anything else? No? Okay, then let's go to the other group. With these things that you discussed, do you have other things that you had?
I can say for group 2.
Mm-hmm.
Let me check if we have double answer. Well, at least we had decision making for sure. So we also picked that point as an importance of information management. But let me see the other ones we have. So decision making would be like day-to-day decision making has been discussed. Also to know what beneficiaries need, accountability towards beneficiaries as well. To know what to be informed at all times or in real time for the whole organization. So any staff could access some system, so they'll be informed, or they can find information that they need. And that will help, I think, to be more efficient, which was another important point. So we don't do double work, we don't do data collection 2 times for the same things, and we work in a better and more efficient way. And also has been pointed out that information is the center of a lot of things, of everything almost. You can do, you can only reach results when you have the right information. And maybe that's the last point, that the challenge, or it's also the importance of information management, is that it's accurate and valid, so that we collect the correct information and we store it in a correct way. So I think I have most of the things now. Yeah. Or if I forgot, team 2, you can add, of course.
For me, it's good. You have.
I have another in the chat from Ibrahim, show the work that has been done. Okay, that's very good. I don't know if anybody wants to add something. Okay, great. So we are going to move to the next question, which is the logical following, and even Thomas, you already started to talk about it. So it's why is it difficult, and in other words, what are the challenges related to information management? So we are going to go back into the groups, same ones. So I'm going to start the groups, and you can reflect on this, and you can still continue using the same notepad on Framapad. You can keep with this one. Okay, I'm launching the groups. Hello, I think everybody's back. Okay, so just as last time, please tell me what you've discussed, and I'm going to take some notes. Who wants to start? Maybe the other group this time? François, who's going to talk into your group?
Mustafa, you take the lead for restitution.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. We discussed our discussion that why is it difficult for the IM system to so we discussed several points and including that the challenges of technology and misuse of tool. I mean, sometimes people don't know how to use the right tools. That's one of the challenges, and also sometimes problem on accessing the internet. So this is also some some people don't have don't feel comfortable with the technology. So this is also one of the challenges. And a lot of, and we also discussed that it's time consuming to analyze the data because there's a lot of always data. Another thing was, to use proper management is in terms of different data. Also, proper management is key or one of the challenges. We also discussed that a lot of people don't see the benefits or the utility of IM system.
Florian, your mic is mute. I saw you speaking, but your mic is open.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah. I did not get the last one. Can you?
Yeah. I mean, the last one was, some people don't see the benefits, or I mean,
Okay.
utility of IM system. So these are some of the key discussions that we discussed in our banner.
Yeah, I get this one. Okay. Anything else?
If I miss something, I think my team will add on.
For me, it's good. I don't know for Thomas or Shakawat, but
yes, it's good, I think.
Great.
Okay, so the other team. Elza, Ibrahim, Ayoub, Bayrou.
Someone of my team wants to share the feedback of our discussion. Okay, I will share. If you want to complete me, feel free to complete. So maybe if I can share about the main difficulty that we share. It was the accuracy of data. I don't want to repeat what was written and raised from the first group, but the accuracy of data. Also, something was mentioned about the lack of resources to get tablet or to train enumerators, and also something was raised about security issues to set up an information management system, and sometimes we are using different tools. It could be difficult to manage these tools and to take decision. It could be difficult for the decision making. If the other participant of my group want to share something else, if I forget something. I said everything? Perfect.
Excellent. Okay. That's also very interesting. So I think you've had a lot of things. And now I want, for the last point, to reflect on how can we improve. So this is a link, obviously, with what are the difficulties. So you can either take all of these difficulties, or maybe focus on only some of them, and see for each of these what can we do to get better and to try to overcome the difficulty. So this is the last one. So once again, we will go into the groups. We have about 5 minutes, and then we will come back and discuss this together. Okay, I'm starting the groups. So please tell me what you discussed.
A lot of way to improve, not a lot of things to improve.
Okay, okay.
Okay, let's start from group 2.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, thank you. So basically, how can we improve? So in one sentence, that we need more resources and allocated some fund. So this is one of them that we discuss within our group. So usually we need some technology, human resources, and fund. So along with this, we need to have some more standardization in the organization, because the within the organization we need to own it that the information management is required. That is one of the most important thing. Next is like a standardization in the project and work that we work basically. So within the HI globally, we have some focusing areas, and also our work is almost in same. Somewhere it might be in different duty in context, but we need to have some standardization. Then is capacity building. I mean the capacity building on it can be training, it can be mentoring, it can be virtual or face-to-face, whatever it is, but it is important, because it is, if you the information management people, those who are dealing with information management, they need to have that much capacity to deal with the system, and also need to work with the other team member in the program or the project. Another important thing is like advocacy with IM, that use of data, not use only with the meal department. The data we are using for information management is all over for all our uses, not for the meal uses. So we need to have some advocacy that information management is important for program or project management. Then is communication, better communication. Like we need to the data management system should be in visualization and explanation, or that explain our work, that explain our changes that we are working for. So we need to have some better communication way. And next is like that we have to have a very simple and accessible system for information management, that we are not expecting anything that is complex, that it might sometimes difficult to operate. So if our information management is like very simple and accessible, it will be also benefited for all. And also like we have to be in balance between efficiency and accessibility. So we have to be in better balance way. And finally, we have to cover during gap and filling, keeping information. Sometimes we have some retention of staff and other things. So we have to have some mechanism to filling the gap. So this is all, and over to my other group members, colleague, if I anything missed.
It's not a miss, but more maybe add-on on the mechanism to fill gaps. It's avoid the fact that sometimes we're in dependence of one person for a system, and when this person leaves the organization for a reason or another, we lost the system. So it's what we discuss a bit during this feeling, this point.
Thank you.
Thanks to you.
Okay, thank you. That was very complete, very rich. What about the other group?
Yes. So basically, for us in our group, of course, we had a very interesting points raised by different group members. Though much have been already presented by the other group, but I will share with you, which is not part of the other presentation just being done. So one of the things we discuss in our group, one has to do with this, we share best practices with our partners, because most times our data is coming from partners. So we as an organization, it is good that we share our best practices with our, our implementing partners. We also mentioned, the other group mentioned about organizing training, coaching, and mentoring. We also talk about collaboration between, other departments within the organization. We talk about budgets. There should be a budget for the meal. And we talk about standard operating procedures. We should have a standard operating procedures, which is a best practice for data management. And we should also have a clear definition of roles and responsibility, from who is going to collect the data, who is going to clean the data, who is going to analyze, who is going to share, and all those kind of things. So we should have a clear definition of roles and responsibility within the information management system. We talked about server management or digitalization of our data. It is very good now if we can digitalize all of our information, so that you can have access to information wherever you are at any point in time. So basically, these are some of the things we discussed in our group. Hi.
Yes, sorry, thank you. Okay, so that's lots of ideas, and I have to say that I agree with everything that you said. So that's a lot of things to do, but on the principle, I think that everything you said is very relevant, and I really agree with all of this. Does anybody want to add something? No? Okay. So I think we'll have a small break. And then when we come back from the break, we will discuss about the information management cycle. The information management cycle, so I showed it to you at the beginning. So we have these 6 steps, and now I want to go into a bit more details for each step. So this is going to be a bit theoretical, but don't worry, then we will have time to discuss. And as always, don't hesitate to ask questions either in the chat or just raise your hands. We are a small group, so we have time to take all the questions, no problem. So the first step of the information management cycle is identify and decide. So in this step, the first thing you do is to define the objective of the collection. Oh, hi, Hadis. Good to have you too. I don't see you, I only see you in the chat. Okay, but if you can hear us, that's great. Yeah, I was saying that first thing that you need to do is to define the objective of your data collection. So you first need to ask what kind of data you want to collect and what for. So, and that's something that you're going to hear me say a lot during this week, is that each time you collect the data, you need to know what it is for. If you don't know why you are collecting this data, what you are going to do with it, then just don't collect it, or at least go and ask the people that want it why they want it, because collecting data that you are not going to use, it's really the worst thing to do. It's a waste of energy, it's a waste of time, it's a waste of resources. Also, if it's personal data, it means that you are creating a risk for the people that you get the data from. And if it's all this for nothing, then it's really not worth it. So really, and once again, that's really something I want to insist on. First thing you need to know is to define why you are collecting the data, what you want to do with it. Then sometimes you will have only one objective that will be very clear, and that's fine. And sometimes it happens often that you have a lot of different things you want to do, and sometimes you need to set priorities and to limit the scope, because sometimes you will have a data collection for one thing. You are going to start maybe go on the field and launch a data collection, and then you will have different people coming to you and saying, okay, on my side I want to collect this because I want to do this, and then somebody else is going to say, oh, I want to do that, and so on and so on, and then you will have too many things to do at once. So just try to focus on what is really essential and limit the scope to only what is the key data that you want. Third thing is identify existing data sources. So sometimes you don't even have to go on the field and collect data. Sometimes the data is already there, already accessible, and in this case you just have to know where it is and to get it. So that's what I said earlier. Sometimes information management does not even imply data collection. So always, before going out on the field and collect data, always check that's something that does not exist already. If it exists, just get it. Maybe it's not going to be what you wanted, and then you will still have to go and collect your data, but maybe it's going to answer all your needs, or at least 90% of your needs, and in this case maybe it's fine just to take that. One thing that you need to do also is to decide on the most appropriate collection method. Is it qualitative or quantitative data that you need? Usually here we are going to talk a lot about quantitative data, because information management is more about quantitative data. There are other things about qualitative data, but it's not really what we are going to discuss today. But you have to be clear at the beginning what is quantitative, what is qualitative data, and to choose which one you want to do. Also, at this stage, it's where you are going to choose the collection tools, decide whether you can use mobile data collection, or if you want to have more paper data collection. And you can also, in this step, start to make an initial estimate of the resources that you will need. So you can see if how many, for instance, if you say that you want mobile data collection, how many surveyors you will need, so how many devices, maybe are you going to need cars for the transportation? So this is where you start thinking about not necessarily in details, but what will be the main resources that you will need, and have some first estimate. Okay, so that's the first step. That's what you have to start with before doing the next steps. Do you have questions on this one? No? Okay, moving on. So second step, it's always, it's still a step of preparation, so you are not launching your data collection yet. It's plan and initiate, so it's a step further. So first one was really to decide the main things that you want to do. Here now we are going to be very specific. So you specify the methodology. So for instance, you say, okay, I'm going to do a survey, and for this survey I need a sample of 200 people, and this is the sampling method that I'm going to use, and I'm going to target this area, and with a sample of 50 people in this area, another sample of 70 people in this area, and so on and so on. So this is where you really get the specifics for the methodology. This is also where you have to validate the choice of tools. So in the first step, for instance, you said, okay, I want to use mobile data collection. So here you say, okay, now that I know exactly the area, I know exactly the type of questions that I'm going to ask, is it still the best choice, or maybe for some reason I have to change? So there is still time to decide another way. Then you are going to have to build and translate the questionnaires. So it's not necessarily something that you as MEAL or IM people are going to do. So building the forms, usually it's something that is done by the technical teams or the project teams. But at some point you will have to give your opinion about the forms, because you're also the expert about data collection, and it's your job to say, okay, but if you want to have this information, maybe because you want to analyze it in this way, then the question needs to be formulated in a specific way. For instance, if people want to know the percentage, I don't know, of people that have improved their access to service at the end of the intervention, then that's something you need to measure, and you also need to measure it at the beginning and at the end of the intervention. You need to have exactly the same questions at the beginning and at the end. So that's something that you can check. Then there is the work of recruiting and training the teams, because usually you will have people collecting the data on the field, and these people need to be trained. So once again, it's not necessarily your job as MEAL or IM to train the teams, but you have to check that all the people, all the enumerators going on the field have a proper training. Then we have things about the equipment. So this is really going to depend on the type of data collection that you're doing. If you're doing mobile data collection, basically the equipment is going to be smartphones or tablets, chargers, protections, and so on. And if it's papers and pen, then you just need to make sure that everybody has forms, that you have printed enough forms, and this kind of considerations. Then you have to prepare the database. Once again, it really depends on the type of collection. So if you are in mobile data collection, you have to just create the forms, and that's something that we will discuss tomorrow with François. And if you are going to use paper data collection, then you need to create a database. So usually we do Excel database, but there are some other tools that can work too. One thing that I usually insist a lot about it, and sometimes you will hear François maybe make fun of me because of this, but it's that you have to test the forms. That's something that's very important, and too often we see people that skip this phase, and you just prepare your forms, and then you say, okay, it's ready. I have tested it on my side. You can go on the field and start collection. And then at the end of the first day, you realize that there is a mistake, but then it's too late to change. So please keep in mind that it's very important to test the forms on a small group, and if possible, in real conditions. So obviously, I'm sure that you always test your forms on your side, but it's not sufficient, because the people that have designed the form don't have necessarily, for them, everything that is in the form is quite intuitive. But you also have to make sure that for people that are maybe that are less concerned by all this, that they will still understand the form, that they will still be able to answer the questions in the right way. So maybe what you can do is at least test it on other staff of the project, and if possible, even go on the field and test it with real target people for this data collection, but just a small sample, and you know that these answers are not going to be taken into account. It's just for testing the form, and at the end of this test, then you see if everything is okay, or if there are some corrections to do. Then you still have time to do the corrections, and then when you start the real data collection, you have something that we are confident is not going to need to be changed after that. And also, I know it's quite early because you have not started data collection yet, but still you need to prepare the analysis. If you start thinking about the analysis after the data collection, you might miss some important things. So it's really important to prepare to know what you are going to analyze. I'm not saying that you have to to do all the formulas and so on, because if you don't have any data, it's sometimes a bit difficult to create the tools, but at least prepare the analysis plan, be sure of what you are going to analyze, what are the indicators that you want, and this will really help you to make sure that you are collecting the right data in the right format. And this will really, hopefully it will avoid you to realize too late that you don't have the right information. Okay, so that's step 2, plan and initiate. Any question on this?
Yes, just maybe a compliment, and it's funny to speak about test. You know it. It will. I will react. Yeah. Just this point are not maybe in this order, or you can go on a point and come back to another. I mean, if you correctly do the test, you will have to prepare the database, modify the preparation of the database, because it will change maybe the order of the question, maybe how you answer a question. So it's really important to do, and maybe to come back in the preparation of the form and of the database. So yeah, just that.
Yes, thank you for these comments. Indeed, it's not a linear thing. Ibrahim, or maybe Maury, I don't know which one.
Point 3.4, that is recruit and train the teams, and also prepare buy the necessary equipment and test if the necessary adjustment and adjust the collection. I want to see I just want to talk around the connection between these two. So most times what happens in the area of training good, and it is of best practice if the resources are available to have all of the tools training during the training, also to ensure that the tool itself is available during the training, so that in the course of the training you can use the opportunity to pre-test, because in the training the end users, that is the data collectors, will be in the training. So if the tool is already available, and also all the equipment, for example, the tablets, the paper forms printed available in the training, then you can use the opportunity to test the tools as well, if only the resources are available for that during that time. If not, then if you do it, if you do the training, then later you pre-test the tool, there will be a kind of, the connection between the processes will be missed out.
Yes, thank you. That's a very good point indeed. Once again, there is no specific order between these points, but you are perfectly right that training the teams actually usually comes last, because it's really better to train the team once you have already bought all the equipment and once you have already tested your tool. So you train the teams on the real version and not necessarily on something that is going to evolve, and yeah. So you're perfectly right. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so moving on. So the third phase is data collection, and I'm sure that this one you had in mind, but actually what is quite strange is that in this phase it's not necessarily the one where the MIL or the IM teams are the most involved, because this is happening on the field. Usually it's the project teams that are collecting the data. So it's not directly you or your teams that are going to be collecting the data. However, there are still things to do during this phase. So depending on whether you are on mobile data collection, but if you're not on mobile data collection, then you have to do data entry. So if you have papers, then you have to fill the information in the database. And sometimes for this, you need to recruit people to do the data entry. So you need to recruit them, to train them, and so on. Then that's a phase where you have to do quality control. And if you find issues in the data quality, then you have to do feedbacks to the team. So it's really important to start to enter the information and control the quality during data collection and not at the end of data collection, because usually when you do quality control, you are going to identify some problems. It's you are very lucky if you have a database that is 100% perfect with no error at all. So if you identify mistakes in the database, then if the data collection is still ongoing, then it means that it's still possible potentially to correct this data. So maybe the surveyors are still here, maybe they already have the answer because they know why they put some this information. Maybe they can confirm whether the information is right or wrong. And if there is the need to go back and collect again the information because it was not collected in the right way the first time, then maybe it's going to be possible. So it's really important to control the data quality and to do feedbacks. And also, for instance, if you see that, I don't know, one field is almost never used, then it's good to have a discussion with the data collectors, ask them why they are not using it. Maybe it means that the question is not well formulated. Maybe it means that the training was not good enough and they need to be trained again on this specific point. So there can be different explanations, but you need to have this discussion and you need to have it as soon as possible. So if you wait for the end of the data collection, then it's too late. Any questions or comments on this phase?
Okay, yes, I have a comment to make.
Sure.
So, yes, so in the process of collecting the data, I'm giving you the actually what is happening on the ground in our own context. Sometimes because we don't have enough staff to collect data, so our data officers or the M&A officer are most times also engaged in the data collection process in the field. And I just want also to add that if even we have the human capacity, the resources for data collectors to do the data collection, it is good and also a good practice to do on the spot check in the field and to ensure that the data collectors are actually following the data collection procedures and protocol that will be outlined in their contract. For example, at the height of the COVID-19, in the process of data collection, we want to see where data collectors are observing the social distancing, even if you are interviewing beneficiary, we want to see where data collectors are using their face masks, are washing their hands in the process, and also want to see in terms of confidentiality, where data, especially in terms of positioning, where you position yourself with the interview to collect the data, especially if you are talking to a female beneficiary, female girl in the school. We want to see you position yourself in such a way that people can see you from a distance. So for also ensure that these things are happening and all these processes are followed by the data collector, it is good to do on the spot check.
Yes, you are completely right. Thanks for adding all this. So for me, this goes in the data quality control, but you're right that it wasn't very clear in what I said. So thanks for adding all this. Any other comments or question? Yes, Adis or Shakawat, I think you both raised your hand at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, I missed up something from the beginning due to connectivity here. Maybe you can take me to the first one. I got the second two slides. The first slide, what was there? I missed that one.
This one, plan and initiate.
Did you get me?
Yes, we hear you, but there is some interruption.
Alice, we don't hear you very well. Maybe you can stop your camera. Maybe the sound will be better this way.
In the first slide, I missed something there. I connected late, so maybe you can just take me briefly back there so that I can be able to catch up.
On the first slide?
Yeah.
This one?
No, still, the other one. I got this one.
Okay, so that was the first step of the cycle. So what we did at the beginning of the session when you were not there was talk about data a definition of information management, what it is, what are the main objectives, main steps, and then we had some group work to discuss what is why is information management important. Then what are the challenges, and then we discussed about things that we could do to improve information management. So that's what we did in the first hour and a half of the session. And then we are going for this part to go step by step and see all the steps of this data management cycle. So far we've done the first 3 steps, and then we still have the other ones to go.
Okay.
Okay, Shakawat.
Hello.
Yes.
So it's not my question actually. So I just share a few of my experience, like in the quality control. So it's a quality control is not a issue for after data collection. I think we can, if we go by step, in second step we have to keep in mind the plan how we control the quality from the training level. You know, what I previously I practice, so quality control and also like a field management plan. Yeah, say for example, sometimes we are engaged in a huge number of sample size for data collection. It depends upon like a population. So if we hire the more than 10 or 15 enumerator for the data collection, so we need to have some plan for field management. And it would be good if we can hire some supervisor for enumerator. What ideally I do in previously, like for every 5 enumerator, we select for 1 supervisor. At the end of the day, if we go for paper-based data collection, so that in that case, so every after end of the day, the supervisor check the sample basis, all of the data collected by under his or her enumerator, supervisor. So if they get something wrong, then you mentioned like we need to have some refresher. Might be there is some gap in the training during data collection and the context of the areas. And there is another issues that is like sometimes we can relate the information are given provided by the beneficiary. Sometimes in I can say in my country context, sometimes people are hiding the information. Sometimes people are unwilling to give the right information. So it is important how they can approach with the beneficiary to collect the accurate information. So everything is all about the quality control. So I think we need to have some mechanism not only in the collection steps, but we can make it in our plan in the plan and initiative phases.
Yeah, totally agree. And actually, you're even a bit anticipating the next exercise that we are doing, because what I want to do just after this is to have you work. No, it's very good. I like it. The next exercise that we are going to do is to reflect what would be the different things to take into account for data quality step by step. So this is what we are going to do next. So please keep all this in mind, and it will be very useful for the coming group discussions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anything else on the collection step. No? Okay. So once you have collected all your data, so usually you have then all your data in a database. So what do you have to do then? Then it's to process and clean your database. You might already have worked on data quality, start identifying errors, but that's where you also are going to go a bit further. And once again, this can be done more or less in parallel. So identify errors. So for instance, try to see if there are duplicates, data entry errors, outliers, and then take action. So the best thing to do is, if it's possible, you will try to correct the mistakes. So maybe see with the sometimes you will have enough information to correct it, so you will just have to discuss with the data collectors, or maybe they can go on the field again. Sometimes you won't be able to correct the errors, and then the only option that you have might be to remove the information that are incorrect, and to rather treat them as missing data instead of errors. But this has to be done only if you know that there are errors. You cannot just remove a data because it's not giving the value that you hope you would have. But really, if you're sure that it's a mistake, then it's better to remove it. That's also at the step where you can anonymize the data, or the other term is pseudonymize, and we are going to talk about this in the data protection session. But basically, anonymizing means that you are really going to remove for all personal identification information, and if it's anonymized, then you cannot know at all who is who in the database. So pseudonymization is when you just replace the personal information by an ID. So for instance, you remove the columns with the name and first name, last name, phone number, something like that, and you put them into a separate database, and in your main database you have only a beneficiary ID, and then you have to combine the two databases to get the complete information. So this is obviously a lower level of security, but sometimes you need to keep this information. For instance, if you are doing a follow-up of the beneficiaries, you need to keep their personal information, but sometimes you want to put it into a separate database to protect it a bit more. And so that's the kind of things that you can do at this step. And sometimes also you are going to want to pre-calculate some values to make then the analysis a bit faster and easier in the next step. So it's not necessarily needed, but sometimes it's helpful to have this kind of thing. Okay, any comment on this? No. Okay. Fifth step is analyze and interpret.
Yes.
Yes, sorry, Ibrahim.
Sorry. So I just want to share a practical experience in the process of data cleaning and data collection. So for one of our projects, we on an annual basis we do verify our beneficiaries to know exactly the number of beneficiaries that we are going to work with in the next period and be able to provide the necessary support. So this is an annual process, and it's a huge number of beneficiaries. We are talking about 8,000 plus beneficiaries. So in the first year, what happened was that at the time of verification, when we hire enumerators to collect the data, we lose cognizance of the importance of doing quality check, during the process. So at the end of the day, at the end of the data collection, when the data collector left, because they were casual workers, we just hired them for a period. They left, and we did the entry. So during the analysis, we encounter a lot of challenges during the cleaning phase, because we failed to do some quality check at the time of the data collection. So what I'm trying to say, we spent more than a month trying to correct some errors, trying to ensure that it even went to a point that we had to send our staff in the field to cross-check the information to get some information again. So what I'm trying to stress that is at the point of data collection, if we should have put more emphasis on the quality check, that will have prevented us from spending more time on the data cleaning process. That was just what happened to us. So from that, when we learned that, in the subsequent years, we were able to, do a better data collection, and we were able to at least finish the process in time.
Yes, yes. Once again, thank you for this. It's always very relevant what you're saying, and indeed, that's the phase where you can try and correct the errors. But it's much better if there are less errors and if you have put some data quality control in advance to avoid having these errors. But sometimes there are some errors that you cannot detect or that are very difficult to detect during data collection, and then you have this final chance to get them. But yeah, obviously it's better if you can catch it earlier.
Most if you identify this.
Sorry, I did not get the last sentence.
No, I was saying you said there are some data quality check you put in place, and some you cannot really avoid them. I was saying even that is possible if you are actually using paper-based collection.
Yeah, right. Okay, thank you. So fifth step is analyze and interpret. So this is where you are going to produce the indicators that you had defined. So usually you remember at step 2, I told you that's where you have to define the kind of analysis that you are going to do. So, well, here we are. So now you are going to do your analysis to calculate the indicators. If possible and if relevant, you are going to disaggregate the indicators by gender, age, and disability. And also what I think is important is not only to do the analysis that was planned, obviously that's you have to do it, but if you have time and if you have the resources, I think it's always interesting to conduct additional analysis based on the results. So usually you have your database, you know that you have to calculate the percentage. For instance, if I take my example, the percentage of people who improved their access to this service at the end of the intervention. Okay, that's something that you have to calculate, but maybe you can try to dig a bit more into the data and try to understand things that you did not plan, or if you see that for some reason you have some unexpected results in the indicators, it's always interesting to go and to do some further analysis to understand this. So that's something you can do at this step. Once you have done all your analysis, created all the indicators, maybe some charts, you want to produce all the data visualization. So that's something that we are going to discuss in the last session of this seminar, how to produce the right visualization. But keep in mind that interpreting the results is something that has to be done by the project and by the technical teams. So on your side, if you are an IM or a MIL staff, your job is to work really with the data, to produce visualization, to produce indicators, but it's not your responsibility then to interpret this, because the other teams also have to be involved. They don't, if the other teams think that okay, it's your job, only you to do the analysis, then you have to go and tell them, okay, no, you also have to be involved because this is your data and you are the one who knows the context, you are the one who takes the decision. So of course you have a lot of work to do, but you cannot be alone in doing this work. Okay, that's it for analysis. Any comments or questions again? Okay, and then the final step, it's actually divided into two. So the first one is share and use. So once you have done you finished your analysis, you have to share the results. So first you have to share the results internally, and this result must lead to decisions. And really, I'm going to insist, I told you at the beginning on this, if you collect data, but in the end, if you do nothing with it, if there is no decision, nothing that is done with the data, then why did you do it in the first place? So that you really have to make sure that each time you collect some data, in the end, there is going to be something that is done with it. All data has to be used for something, and so it can create new knowledge, it can help you take a decision, it can help you to do the reporting to the donor. But in the end, there has to be an objective, and that's where, when you are at this step, at the final step, that's where you are going to reach that objective. And then it's not only about internal use, but it's also important to disseminate the result to the different actors of the project. So it's going to be obviously to the partners of the project, maybe to the authorities, to the beneficiaries, to the communities. So, and you are not necessarily going to give the same kind of information to everybody, because maybe these different people are not interested by the same information, and also maybe they don't have the same education level, same background, so you may want to present the information in different ways, but it's important to take into account the audience and the target and the message that you want to give to each of these people to prepare an adequate data visualization and presentation of the data. And then in parallel, you are also going to archive your data. So once again, that's something we're going to talk a bit in the last session. But basically, you have to put somewhere a clean version of the final data set with all the explanations that goes with them. If possible, and that's really our recommendation, it's to anonymize the data sets. So once you have done all the analysis, once you know that you don't need to keep personal information anymore, the best thing to do is to remove all this personal information, but then to keep all the others information, because this data set can be very valuable for different uses. So it's better to keep it, but if possible to remove personal information from it. And everything that is work versions, paper questionnaires and so on, it's better to destroy it as soon as possible and keep only the final version. First, it will avoid having confusion, because maybe you are going to share the wrong versions, thinking it's the last one, but actually it was not the last one, and so on. So keep only the last one. And also it means that at some point, if you want to completely archive and remove everything else, then you have only one file to archive, and you don't have other versions that are not the right ones that are everywhere. And then there is the question of data sharing. That's also something that we're going to discuss later in the session on data protection. Okay, and that's it for the information management cycle. Do you have comments on the last phase?
Yes. Fine for, and
please, Shakawat.
Okay.
Please.
Hello.
Yeah.
So for my understanding, so throughout your presentation, I found that there is two options. One is for paper-based data collection, and another is for mobile or apps-based data collection. So now for my question is like that: if we go for paper-based data collection, so and then we input the data into the database, and we analysis, and all those things are done. So for the archive and archive and pool. So is there any policy or procedure that how long we'll keep the paper-based database? Just before you said that destroy the hard copy of database. So, but is there anything recommendation to keep and lock the paper-based data collection for duration of the project, or 1 year or 2 years or 4 years for the audit and other things? Is it necessary, or what do you recommend?
So my actually it depends on the donors and on what you have put in the project proposal. But for instance, if your source of verification for the indicators, you put that it's a digital database, and it's even better if you can put anonymized digital database, then you're good. It means that your donor, and if it's because this is something that is in the logical frame usually with the indicators and source of verification, and it means it's in the contract. So if in the contract you have put that your source of verification is an anonymized database, and if the donor is okay with that, then you're good for the audit, and it means that you can delete the paper files. If your source of verification, if it's written that it's paper files, then you have to keep them at least a few years for the audits. So it depends. My recommendation is to try to go for the first option. So in the source of verification, mention that you want to have only digital database, and this way you will be able to delete to destroy the paper files as soon as the project is completed. Or sometimes even if it's only a one-shot survey. So for instance, you are doing a baseline and you don't necessarily are going to do the end line with the same people. Then once you have produced the report of the survey, then maybe you don't need the paper files anymore, and you can destroy everything. So, but that's something maybe Elsa is going to discuss a bit in the session on data protection. But as much as possible, it's good to reduce the amount of information that you keep, especially if it's personal information. And if you have different formats, then you can destroy the paper one and keep only the database.
Thank you.
Ibrahim, I think you wanted to add something else. Okay, I see your comment in the chat about sharing experience on quality control. Maybe we can keep that for the group discussions that are coming just after. Okay, great. So just a quick word about information management cycle and project cycle. So I'm sure that most of you know the cycle on the right. So it's HI project cycle. You have it in the PME policy, project planning, monitoring, and evaluation policy. So this is the project cycle. So there are 5 steps: initial assessment, design, inception, implementation, and completion. And on the left, you have the IM cycle. So maybe you could be tempted to say, oh, these 2 cycles look a bit similar, so there is a parallel to do, and maybe the initial assessment corresponds to the first phase, and so on and so on. But actually, it's not working that way. These 2 cycles are really independent because you can do data collection at different steps of you can have a complete cycle on information management at each steps of the project cycle. For instance, if you are in the initial situation and needs assessment, maybe that for the need assessment you will have to do a survey a need assessment survey, and for this need assessment survey, actually you are going to do the whole cycle. So you are going to decide what kind of information you need. You are going to plan your data collection, to collect your data, to analyze, to process the database, to analyze the results, and to use the results. And the use will be to help you design your project by focusing only on the area where there are needs, and so on and so on. So these are really different cycles. And once again, at the inception, maybe you are going to do a baseline. Then during the implementation, you are going to do data collection around beneficiaries information. So yeah, so I just wanted to show you the two cycles, but really to tell you that these are not the same, and actually they do not go at the same rhythm. So this usually goes faster than the project cycle, because in one project you can have several data collection and data use and analysis. Also a word on data protection, because you see that now we've seen all the 6 steps of the cycle, but you have 2 other things. You have data protection that is all around, and then you have data quality that is in the center. So on data protection, it's really something that is essential. Why? Because if we do not take into account data protection, then you are going to create some risk for the beneficiaries, for people we collect personal data on. There is really a risk if we do not protect this data properly. But there is also a risk for HI employees and HI as an organization if we do not protect the data. So I don't want to talk too much about this, because we'll have a dedicated session next Tuesday, so next week. But I just want you to have in mind that this is really a key element of the cycle, even if it's not one step, because this is something that you have to do at all the steps of the cycle, and Elsa will talk about it. And then the last thing is data quality. So it's really in the center of the cycle. So it's really important. And then once again, it's at all the steps. So we define usually data quality by 3 criteria. Completeness, so meaning that you have to be sure that your data is complete, that you are not missing some information. Accuracy, be sure that your data is correct, that there are no mistakes in it. And coherence, meaning that your how to say that data has to be coherent, but you are not going to have data that say different things that are not that do not go together. So data quality, I'm sure that you are convinced of it, and we've already talked a lot about it. It's really essential. And one of the reasons is that if you have poor data quality, then you are going to take bad decisions, because, as we said, data is really here to help you take good and informed decisions. But if your data is bad, then maybe your decisions are going to be bad too. And also, one of the issues, if your quality is not good enough, is that the people that are supposed to take this decision, people that are supposed to use the data, if they do not trust the quality of the data, probably they will not. They will decide not to use your data and not to take the decision based on the data, but maybe they will decide to rely on their own judgment instead. So really, you have to have good quality data, and you have to build confidence on the quality of your data. Otherwise, people are going to doubt it and maybe not use it. And that's the last point. I already said it, but data quality has to be taken into account throughout the entire cycle. Okay, so now this work that exercise that I've been talking about for 20 minutes, it's finally coming. So once again, I'm going to put you into smaller groups. So Addis, you missed the first one, but you will see that you are going to be in a group with 4 other people, maybe 5 depending, and so we'll have small groups, and the objective of these groups will be to discuss what can be done for data quality at each stage of the cycle. So once again, you will have a Frama pad to take notes with all the steps of the cycle in the pad, so you can write directly. And the idea is for each step, try to discuss, okay, what can we do at this step to make things to improve the quality of the data and to make sure that we will have good quality data. So as Ibrahim said a lot, and Shakawat also, it's important to have to anticipate the issues and not to try not to discover the issues at the last phase. But so there are things to do at the early steps, but then there are other things to do also later. So let's say that you will have about 15 minutes to discuss this together, and then we will come back together and have a very brief restitution of all this. And I think that will be more or less the end for today after this. Okay, so I'm going to launch the groups. Then once again, you will have Elsa and François facilitating the discussion. Okay. Okay, I'm launching the group. Hello. So we are back together. So I went to the 2 groups and I saw that you've both been working very hard. So sorry for interrupting you. I think none of you had the time to go further than collection, but still you had a lot of ideas. So we have to finish. We have to finish in on 5 minutes, and I want to try to be on time and not to keep you too late. So what we are going to do is not having restitution all together, because there is a lot of content and we would need more than 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do is on my side, I will compile everything that you've written in the pads, and I will send it to you by email, a kind of synthesis of all this. So for now, what I suggest to you is that after all this discussion, I think you had almost 25 minutes of discussion. If you had to keep one idea that you want to apply to you, what would it be? So my proposition is that every one of you just write one sentence in the chat of something that you want, an action that you want to take to improve the quality of the data that is under your responsibility. Something that you can do in a quite short term. So let's say in the next 3 months. It can be a bit more than that if you want. And write that down in the chat. So don't worry, it's not something that we are going to share with your manager. It's not an evaluation or anything. It's just to make things more concrete. What is this thing that you want to do? Okay, so we have Thomas on standardized reporting. Good one. Please don't be shy. Okay, so François is going to work on capacity building. Ayub wants to work on SOPs. Addis, multiple formats for easy access. add capacity development to IAM officer for ensuring data quality data collection. Okay, great. Okay, effective coaching, so that's also goes with capacity development. So what I see globally is a lot of capacity development, and I agree that it's something that is really key. You have things about standardization, about having SOPs, so that goes a bit with standardization. Okay, that's great. You can keep on writing if you have more ideas. So it's time to conclude, but if you have maybe 1 or 2 questions, don't hesitate to open your microphone and ask your questions or your comments. Yeah, community of practice, sure. I hope that's what we are going to have soon. And actually what you're doing here, it's kind of a start of a community of practice. Okay, no question? Okay, I feel that you're a bit impatient to go back to your usual work and read your emails and so on. So we are going to stop here. Oh, 1 question. Okay, Shakawat, go on.
So basically, this is not a question. It's my
no problem.
It's a comments basically. Always not I'm asking question. So for me, it's very good start, and I think it's very interesting for all of us, those who are working in the field level. So this is very good, and it's very helpful for our own capacity development as well as to our team members. So like that, for me, there are 7 steps in the IAM cycle. So it's very important. So if I divide it into 2, that is, there are 2 categories for me. For my understanding is like that: 1, 2, and 3. This which is like input, and next 4 step is like for output. If I ensure the 1 to quality data, precise data, so we need to give more focus on the identification and decide, plan, and initiate, and also collect. So if we put the quality data in that step, and after all, we will responsible for process, data analysis, cleaning, and finally reporting and presentation to our different level of audience. So my concern is like that: if we give more emphasis on the beginning of the cycle of information management system, then we'll able to harvest the quality data in the later cycle. That's it from my.
Yes, thanks. And you're completely true, and that's something that we did not do. Sorry, I'm just going to share my screen one last time. But sometimes we split the cycle into 2 parts, and it's exactly what you said. Step 1, 2, and 3 are more about acquiring the data, and then step 4, 5, and 6 are about using the data. Or maybe sometimes the split is between 4 and 5. And it's really true that if you put some more efforts in the first phase 1 and 2, then you will have really better results, and the next steps are going to be much easier, because if you have not planned, if you have not prepared your data collection correctly, then you will probably have a lot of problems in the next steps, and sometimes it's a bit too late. So I completely agree with you, and I really encourage you to put a lot of effort in the preparation in the first 2 steps, and then you will see that the other ones will become easier if you have prepared things correctly. So that's really a very good conclusion to the session. Okay, so
Thank you.
I think that's all for today. Thanks a lot for participating. I think it was really a good session. We have a very good group with a lot of people participating, asking questions, making very relevant comments. So thank you for this. So we are going to stop here for today, but tomorrow we will start again. So only the afternoon. So today was we had the morning too because it was the introduction and so on, but tomorrow it's only the afternoon. So starting at the same time that we had the session this afternoon today, or well, I say afternoon, but it depends for who, but at least in France, and I think for most of you it's also afternoon, maybe except for Sierra Leone. So tomorrow François will be presenting you mobile data collection. So I know that some of you already know this topic, but maybe for some others it will be quite new. I just want to remind you that this session was recorded, so we are going also to extract the video and we will share it with you at the end of the seminar. We are also going to send you all the presentation, PowerPoints and so on. So that's it. Thank you a lot and see you tomorrow.
Quick just a comment, Florian, if you have question about this session during the night, because you can't stop to think about that, we will take few minutes tomorrow at the beginning of the session to answer the question that you could have maybe during the night. Yeah.
Indeed, we will have some time tomorrow, and also Elsa is going to share with you a link of a quick survey to fill, so you can give us your feedback on the session. Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good evening or afternoon, and see you tomorrow.
Have a very good evening. Yeah, see you tomorrow.